Hello and good morning. It is a little rainy here in Letchworth Garden City near Cambridge, and I am nestled underneath the shelter here because it's raining next to a Lidl. Just across from me is a Quick Fit, and along the road is McDonald's, but more importantly there's a travel lodge around there where Lorna and I stayed the night after coming down with all of Kieran's bits and pieces to drop him off at his flat in London. It's a time where my eldest son has moved out and gone to live in London to give it a year to see whether or not his acting career is going to take off. He just on the cusp of that, his hand has appeared in an advert for Traces, which is by Alibi. It's the gloved hand. He plays a scientist, and anybody who knows Kieran knows how, to a certain extent, absurd that is, but thankfully he's got Harley, who is a scientist pal, who helped him with a lot of his prep work and a lot of his research, which was great for them to be able to do that, but also for Kieran to be able to use it in such a positive manner. So he's away down, we are here. Lorna found us somewhere to stay as close to London as she could, which was an hour and a half away from Kieran, so we had a late night dash up the road after seeing Kieran, and I got to eat in a wimpy for the first time in God knows how many decades. A wimpy in the middle of where Kieran's staying. So there we are, and kids have been much on my thought process this week because a number of the children that I've been working with outside of my day job have been working on, whether it be National 5 or higher, their personal reflective essays, and a few do reflect upon in our modern society where they are with regards to their mother or their father. And I saw something in Wednesday. I've been working on a podcast with a friend of mine, Chris Kane, and we did a visit this week to see Billy Nelson, who is a boxing trainer and personal trainer, who we went to see, and he's given us a little bit of a challenge, which I think has terrified both Chris and I. At the time it didn't, Chris. It didn't quite terrify so much now, and kind of as time goes on you begin to think, oh no. And this week I'm going to see a very good friend of mine, Sharon Miller, who runs Joyworks, which is the laughing yoga. But parents and children have been much in my mind, because on Wednesday night I was going to see one of my kids, and there was something that I saw which really had a profound effect on me. I was going towards a crossing, and the lights had turned red, and I stopped the car. Two people, it was raining very, very hard, There were two people standing, mother and child. And the mother, once my car had stopped, with her hand down, and quite naturally the daughter put her hand up. She must have been 7, 8, 9 years old, something of that ilk. Just automatically held that hand. Mother had other things on her mind. She was looking elsewhere. She wasn't thinking about what was doing. The child was there in a moment and just held her hand, and they started walking across. And as they started to walk across, coming from the other side was a car, a red car, coming directly towards the crossing. And being a parent, the first thing you think, oh my God, I hope they've seen her. And I wouldn't say there was panic. That would be suggesting there was too much emotion involved. But I did think for a second, oh, I hope she's seen them. That child didn't miss a step, didn't think, just held that hand and kept walking. A mother kept walking, possibly unaware of what was going on around about her, unaware that there was a car coming on the other side. The car, of course, slowed down and stopped, although it came round in what I thought was a rating notch round the corner. But then, that image of that child, totally trust, love, no second thoughts, that simple act of being in a moment with my mother was something that had a profound effect, because I went off to speak to somebody who does not have such a relationship with a mum, and I spoke to another kid in care that we have who also has a very difficult relationship with a mother, as did I. And yet in that moment it was something so incredibly profound and trusting and an embodiment of love. And it reminded me of all of our parental responsibilities, not just to love and adore our children, but to guide and be responsible for helping them. And therefore, when we come to the end of the week and Kieran's off to London and we're dropping all his stuff on, and you can see it's going to be for him a massive step. And these are trite things that we say without thinking what they actually mean, but they are massive, massive steps. Also this week, there's been a lot of talk in terms of cultural woes. We were in a part of London which is quite ethnically diverse, and we've had a few discussions this week with regards to ethnicity and the way in which we as a country, the United Kingdom, dealt with the influx of immigration. I was reading this week as well that Scotland is already struggling because immigration is starting to slow down, and we as a country need immigration. We need people to come into our country in order to boost the economy, in particular those who are young enough to ensure that people of my age go into old age without being concerned or worried that their pension pot is going to be raided in order to support not them but also those who are going to reach and attain the age of 65 or 75 or whatever it is by the time I get to there, that it's going to be the retirement age. And that's one of the things that are a problem. And one of the things that I listened to in my podcast this week was to Margaret Attwood, who's released Testament, which is the follow-up 35 years later from her amazing novel, Handmaid's Tales. And it was interesting because she was interviewed by The Economist, and she talked about the hashtag #MeToo movement, and she's been described as a bad feminist because of her view, and it's a view I am to share. And what she was saying was that the hashtag #MeToo movement started exactly the way you would expect. There was a number of people who came forward and said that they had felt intimidated, or they had been assaulted, or indeed raped by an authoritative male figure. And hashtag #MeToo obviously came from the people who then stood up and actually said, it's happened to me as well. Me too. But she said that absolutely anything that starts like that, which does not have a counter movement, does not have a pushback, does not have somebody at the other side of it pushing back and saying, do you know what? There may be an issue here, that may be something that we need to think about. We need to discuss and debate this. And if you're vilified or you're put in a position where you're not actually credited in the sense you were born with because you happen to believe in those things, then what happens is that singular movement becomes like the Salem witch trials, so that anybody who's accused becomes guilty without trial. And that is not a good thing. And I think that to a certain extent she's absolutely right. I think that there have been instances where people have been accused and fingers have been pointed, where it has ended up with being they must be guilty because they're rolling the absolute valued, I'm trying to think of the right word here, because the right word is absolutely vital. The way in the bravery of people coming forward, the bravery of people standing up and saying, this is what has happened to me, of coming out from underneath the shadows and screaming as loudly as they can, has to be valued and promoted and given its place. But also what needs to be there is some kind of measure that's put in place in order to analyse these things and say, this is right. But as has been found recently, when somewhere in the region of £2 million was spent in Operation Midland, which was because of some guy who was called Nick in all of the news reports that said this person had abused him, that person had abused him. Of course, what it turned out was that he was a bigger abuser, and he was a paedophile, and he was somebody who had been responsible for the desecration of childhood amongst many, 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 many children and young people. And yet he destroyed people's reputations. People died without having been cleared. And I think it was very important to hear what Margaret Attwood was saying. And I wonder now just exactly how, as a Democrat, because I am a Democrat, I think that's the most important aspect of my belief system, how we take that one forward. Of course, being of a certain age as I am 1 year younger than Nigel Benjamin Button Ben, who's decided at the age of 55 is going back in a boxing ring in order to fight. It's been licensed not by the British Boxing Board of Control, but the British and Irish Boxing Authority. I know BIBA. I know the people involved in BIBA. I know some of the things that they have done, which has been different to the British Boxing Board of Control in order to help particularly those boxers who suffer from head trauma. I know that they are decent people. However, a number of things that they've done recently are things that I find, as indeed many in the boxing world, a little strange. They licensed Danny Williams at heavyweight, fighting Lee McAllister, who is a lightweight, but fought at heavyweight and beat Danny Williams for a very minor version of a world title. And now they're going to license Nigel Benn. Ben talks about his age being just a number. It's not. The worry and concern, after he is somebody who had a busting fight with Gerald McLennan that left McClellan unable to talk, not quite in a vegetative state but not far away from it, now going into a boxing ring against a 40-year-old who recently, as 2014, was a world champion, is a real worry and concern. And you see both his sons, Harley Benn and Conor Benn, are boxers as well, appearing on YouTube, not being 100% comfortable with the decision that their father has made. I don't think anybody should be comfortable with the decision that his father has made. I think it's a mistake, but I think it's going to happen. So, to a certain extent, I understand that the way in which people will go about this will be thoroughly professional. There's a lot of things riding on this. There's a lot of people keeping an eye on it, and they'll have to be absolutely top-notch when it comes to it. Overnight, Errol Spence Jr. managed to beat split decision Sean Porter, both guys who fought Kell Brook. Porter, who was beaten by Kell Brook in probably one of the greatest overseas world title fights that Britain went and won in America, and Errol Spence Jr., who did school Kell Brook the last time. Kell Brook had a version of the world title, and it was that version that Errol Spence had that he was defending, and he has had the WBC title from Sean Porter, and now will face Danny Garcia. An excellent fight, from what I'm reading. I haven't seen it, but I won't get too far at it, but it sounds as though it was superb. Over the weekend as well, on Friday night, the heavyweight scene saw Daniel Dubois in less than one round win the Commonwealth title, having won God knows how many titles in such a short period of time, more than Joe Joyce, more than any other heavyweight currently on the scene that's just underneath the elite level. Daniel Dubois has certainly set the heather alight. Nicola Adams saved her world title in a split decision, one of two split decisions, the earlier being Errol Spence's. This weekend, Adams was out the ring for 11 months, looked exceptionally ring rusty, and was exceptionally fortunate to retain her world title. And it leaves me to finish with Ayr United, my hometown team, whose manager disappeared off to Partick Thistle, who won 3-1 away to Inverness yesterday, and a number of Ayr United fans who have been on various social media platforms and knocking their gums and having a go. Let's get this straight. I know Lachlan Cameron, the owner of Ayr United. If it wasn't for Lachlan Cameron, Ayr United wouldn't have a team. Every year he puts a 6-figure sum into the club, close on $250,000 every single year, in order to keep it afloat. Ayr United don't have fans who are sitting at home twiddling their thumbs or being keyboard warriors who can match that. And because of that, without Lachlan Cameron, Ayr United would have folded as a club a long time ago. So we won't. Ian McCall has given us a 5-year period and spell. I remember when we had to beat Forfar and we did so 3-0 to stay in League One because of a disastrous season. And in came Ian McCall, and he did exactly that. Last year we got to the playoffs in the Premier League. Nobody should begrudge this man what he has done. Nobody should begrudge his move, but plenty will. Because that's the nature of football, and that's how we are as football fans. We're unforgiving. So, in the rain, as we finish the day, I am off to partake of the largest breakfast, having gone to the Boar's Head yesterday in Birmingham for the 4th time, for our lunch. And when we went to the Wimpy last night, we couldn't eat a damn thing, but we did manage a little nibble or two of chips and onion rings. But apart from that, it was incredible, as it always is. So, I'll be more north next week. And I think I may have found what to put on as I finish in another song lyric. Till next week. Bye for now.